Prayer by the chaplain.
Let us pray. O God, bless the legislators gathered here, their minds, their hearts, their bodies. How hard they work for the people of Minnesota, for the people they love, in this state they love. Only they know how hard this work is. On this day, in this moment, give them ears to hear what they most need to hear, clearing space from amid all the chatter. In their weariness, bless them with plans for rest in the not-so-distant future, and with assurance of the value of this their high calling. In their anxiety about whom to please and whom to favor, may integrity of soul be their first ideal, the source that will ever guide and bless their work. In their disappointment, grant them a measure of serenity. In their happiness, grant them humility and the wisdom of the long view. May they remember that they are one body, and may they have the grace to act kindly. O God, in these changing times, you have given these leaders a love of the frontiers, where the new will draw its enrichment from the old for the sake of the common good. Give them one more thing, a love for one another that goes deeper than the deepest disagreement. Bless these legislators, their minds, their hearts, their bodies, how hard they work for the people of Minnesota, for the people they love, in the state they love. Amen.
The chaplain for today is Reverend Sarah Campbell, Mayflower Church, United Church of Christ in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank
you. The clerk will take the roll. The clerk will close the roll. A quorum is present. The clerk will read the journal of the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 88th Session, 2013, 56th day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Tuesday, May 14th, 2013.
There's no objection. Further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will be approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Hearing no objection, the journal is approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Comparison reports. There's a copy of this order of business on each member's desk. If there is no objection, those motions will prevail. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail. Reports of standing committees and divisions. A copy of this order of business has been placed on each member's desk. A minority report has been filed on House File 1823. So we will act on all other committee reports first, and then act on the report on House File 1823. If there is no objection, the reports, with the exception of House File 1823, will be adopted. Okay. Hearing no objection, those reports are adopted. We'll now act on House File 1823. The clerk will report the majority and the minority reports, and pursuant to our rules, we will take action on the minority report first.
Majority report on House File 1823, an act relating to state government. Minority report, I, the undersigned, being a member of the minority of the Committee on Ways and Means, recommend that House File 1823 do pass with the following amendments. The report is signed. Loon moves that the minority report on House File 1823 be substituted for the majority report, and that the minority report be now adopted.
Representative Loon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Well, the minority report that I am offering to House File 1823 would change the constitutional amendment that's being proposed in Representative Metsa's bill. I would propose to replace that with a requirement for a 3/5 majority vote for legislators for raising the legislative salary. I also would propose eliminating the council that's within this legislative constitutional amendment proposal to set legislative salaries. I do this for a couple of reasons, and I hope members will listen to this with an open mind. First of all, unlike the majority report, I think the council offers a lot of power to the executive branch over the setting of legislative salaries. And while this doesn't always happen, occasionally you can have a situation where the relationship between the legislature and the governor is not necessarily a friendly one, and the governor's appointments to this council could be somehow used to perhaps even punish the legislature. The council, there's no assumption that their recommendations would be for some kind of an increase to legislative salaries. It could very well be a decrease in salaries and compensation. So I hope legislators will think about that carefully. Also, the Chief Justice is going to be under the proposal in the majority report, would appoint half the council. The governor, again, makes appointments to the Supreme Court. Not saying that there would be any undue influence, but something to certainly keep in mind. And finally, a supermajority is required for a few things that we do here in the legislature. Our Constitution and our rules require it. If we're going to do a bonding bill, if we're going to borrow to do spending for projects on the state's behalf, we have a 3/5 vote requirement. And I think that's a good one. And it requires also a 3/5 vote for changing the banking laws. The legislative salary one is a very sensitive one, as all legislators understand. At some point, I think it's one of those things where reasonable people can have a discussion about the work that we do and what is a fair rate of compensation and salary for it. And having a vote taken on that can be done with only one party, I think is absolutely the wrong approach. It is a political football. And if we want to try to take this out of a partisan effort, then a 3/5 vote really requires some bipartisan work to look at these issues and wrestle with them. Now, no secret, I personally don't think this is the time to be looking at a legislative pay increase of any kind. We have a deficit. We are working, hopefully, towards crafting some kind of a budget here yet this year. That being said, I think there's a lot of members that feel that way. But looking to the future of what we may do on this, having this issue, again, be a political football where one party may squeak by with the votes on a very narrow majority is not the way to address this issue. And so I would ask members to support the minority report. And Mr. Speaker, I would ask for a roll call vote.
Roll call being requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I move to lay the minority report on the table.
Mr. Speaker, I'd request a roll call on the
roll
motion to lay
call
it on
being
the table.
requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. The clerk will take the roll on the motion. The clerk will close the roll. There being 70 ayes and 57 nays, the motion prevails. The question recurs on the adoption of the majority report for House File 1823. Hearing no objection, that report is adopted. Second reading of House Files.
Second reading House File 1297.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1823.
Second reading.
Second reading House File 1832.
Second reading. Representative Erdahl, what purpose do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Point of personal privilege.
State your point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to announce that this is Cheese Day today, and my wife Karen will be having at noon 6 pounds of sliced cheese from First District in Litchfield, where this great dairy producer processes 5 million pounds of milk from Minnesota every day.
All right. Second reading of Senate files.
Second reading Senate File 561.
Second reading. Introduction and first reading of House files. The following House files have been introduced, have been offered for introduction today. The Chief Clerk will report the House files and give them their first reading.
Introduction and first reading of House Files 1835 through 1839.
First reading House files 1835 to 1839. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following Senate file herewith transmitted. Senate File 778, an act relating to collective bargaining. Signed, Joanne M. Zoff, Secretary of the Senate.
First reading of Senate files.
Introduction and first reading of Senate File 778, an act relating to collective bargaining. Nelson moves that Senate File 778 and House File 950, now in the General Register, be referred to the Chief Clerk for comparison.
Representative Schoen, for what purpose do you rise?
Mr. Speaker, point of personal privilege.
State your point of personal privilege.
Mr. Speaker, members, today...
Representative Schoen, I'm sorry. We have to, the Nelson motion that we send those files out for comparison needs to be adopted. So if there's no discussion on that, all in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion prevails. Now, Representative Schoen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, as we grind on the final week and the public will see plenty of divisiveness on those issues that we are divided on, they don't see as many of the issues that we certainly stand together on. And today, we're observing the annual standing of the Memorial Guard to honor the 270 law enforcement officers who made the ultimate sacrifice while protecting their communities and neighbors here in Minnesota. The vigil began last night at 5 p.m. when officers from all over Minnesota traveled to St. Paul on the state capitol grounds here at the State Police Memorial, and will continue till 7 p.m. tonight. Following the standing of the Memorial Guard, the Law Enforcement Memorial Association will host a candlelight service at the Peace Officers Memorial. I invite all of you and the general public to attend this moving celebration. There will be police bagpipe music, vocal solos, and full music compositions. This year's guest speaker is Minneapolis Police Chief Janae Hartel. The ceremony will begin at 7:25 p.m. tonight with a parade of Law Enforcement Honor Guard who will march to the Capitol grounds from Wabasha and Exchange. The event concludes with ceremonial firing party, taps, and final musical selections by the Minnesota Police Band playing Amazing Grace. So I appreciate everybody taking a moment to think about that, and Representative Cornish would have a couple items to say as well.
Representative Cornish, what purpose do you rise?
Mr. Speaker and members, we'd be proud to have you folks come down if time allows this evening for the ceremony. It is really impressive. Representative Schoen and Johnson and myself would sure appreciate if you could stop in. There's a good chance that you'll see a color guard from your city or your county. There's color guards from all over the state that come down and march around and get into the uniform. The speeches are good. It's really quite an emotional time because a lot of the families that have lost loved ones will be in the crowd listening. And so with that, Mr. Speaker, could we have a moment of silence to honor those that have fallen in the line of duty?
Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. In a moment, I'll move a recess to the call of the chair. I would expect that we'll be gone for an hour or so. DFL members, we'll be heading to caucus in room 217. Rules Committee members will be meeting in room 118 as soon as we go into recess. And, Mr. Speaker, with that, I move a recess to the call of the chair.
Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Majority Leader yield for a question?
She will yield. Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know, and Majority Leader, I know we're waiting with anticipation for the state's budget. I know that that's in conference committee right now. Can you give us an idea of whether we'll see some of those bills coming back to the House floor today, and if so, which ones? And I know I don't think we've seen them posted yet. I know we have a 12-hour rule. So will we be taking any of those up this evening?
Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Representative Dowd, and members. Do watch the House website and our email for the posting of the conference reports as conference committees are completed. That's how we'll best know that the work is done and that 12-hour rule begins. I would anticipate that we could see jobs and public safety later today, depending on the work of the reviser, et cetera. So please watch the website to understand when things are being posted, and then we'll keep each other in touch.
Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Madam Majority Leader. GOP members will caucus immediately following the recess in our caucus room upstairs.
Representative Murphy moves a recess to the call of the chair. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Motion prevails. We stand in recess to the call of the chair.